Jason says, please jot down my tremendous finish time of 1,162 minutes in honor of show number 1,162 for Sunday's inaugural GL Marathon. Rookie can do the math conversion. The GL Marathon, we even run in pleasant weather. Good luck, Joe from Egan. Oh, I'm sure people are expecting me to have some sort of tirade.
Yeah, what's your tirade?
There's two ways to look at this, folks. One is the tirade way, and one is a calmer way.
Well, calm's boring.
In through the nose.
What I did do was do some homework, and I tried to discover a number of things. For example, is there a world governing body of marathon running? And to the best of my abilities, and I would hope a marathon runner would correct me if it need be, I cannot find a world governing body. I'm sure the Olympics has its own marathon staff for the marathon, the Olympic. Yes, you in the back.
I can help you with that.
Yeah.
Each runner gets a certificate with your time on it.
What's that have to do with an organizing body?
It's printed on the bottom of that. Brought to you by Twin Cities in Motion. Brought to you by the Boston whatever.
In Boston, the governing body is the Boston Athletic Association.
Correct.
And in their rules section, there are 26 pages. And there is no mention of weather in the 26 pages of rules. Boston did cancel in 2021 for the first time in 124 years because, to me, this is almost as stupid as canceling for weather. They feared that they could not achieve a correct social distancing because of the pandemic.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So the run was canceled. In the Twin Cities, the governing body is called Twin Cities in Motion. They are the people responsible for staging and running the Twin Cities Marathon. I can find no language in Twin Cities in Motion's literature about weather, but Medtronic is the sponsor. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, they also have rules that apply to the marathon. And in Rule 8.04, Medtronic's literature does mention the possibility of cancellation for inclement weather. So it's there. It's printed somewhere that weather could become a factor in running this race. My personal belief is
Careful. It's on the edge.
That this is people who, however well-intentioned, have been completely caught up in the narrative of we are doomed because man is ruining the earth. And remember, that has nothing to do with the environment. That movement has everything to do with changing behavior. It has nothing to do with what the temperature is supposed to be or the wind or the rain or the snow or the sleet. It has to do with something far more cosmic in mind.
Okay.
So I happen to think that's what they got. They heard that weather. The meteorologists are only too willing to chirp about it all week and say, oh, they better have water. Right. It's going to be warm. And they get caught up in this narrative where hot weather on October 1st, apparently they can't understand that could happen. And then they freak.
Was there really a news story about they better have water at the marathon?
All week long they were talking about stay hydrated and the whole deal.
I bet they hadn't thought of that.
God. So they canceled this thing. They were up all night studying weather charts, and they about 5:30 in the morning they said, "No, we're going to cancel."
The forecast did not change from Saturday to Sunday morning.
Right.
Nothing changed.
So the two ways you can look at it. One, it's the mystery. that happened right before your very eyes, or two, it's entirely legitimate to cancel out of fear of personal injury to some of the runners. So I think what they've done is they run this marathon completely backwards. They've screwed it up. You've got professional runners coming in here. This is how they make their living. You got these African kids running around all summer long in Nairobi in their bare feet,
Right.
and it's 110.
Right.
They wouldn't have given a bleep about the weather.
Correct.
So you send the pros off. They would have been done by the time it hit 75 degrees, if not 70 degrees. They
How
would have
do they
been
make-
done.
How do they make their living doing it?
You get paid.
The purse.
You get a
Oh,
purse.
really?
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
And then I don't know. This will be up to Twin Cities in Motion to divine this, but you'll have to from here on out, because you've now established a precedent, and what you need to come up with now are a number of variables that address the ramifications of your actions. You have to come up with you'll have to come up with some weather numbers. You'll have to come up with some literature.
Parameters.
Yes, you'll have to create parameters, and you'll have to decide this. I don't know how you will consult with doctors or what have you, but you're going to have to come up with, we will run no marathon if the forecast calls for anything above 83.7 degrees, whatever you're going to come up with. And a humidity, anything above 57% and a dew point of 62, whatever. You're going to have to create that because you've now established the precedent. You've established that whatever yesterday was at the time of the marathon or the forecast, that's too much.
That was
You
black
can't-
flag.
You can't do it. It turned black flag, whatever the hell that means.
Well, I thought they were using the EAS, the Event Alert System.
I don't know what the EAS is.
Well, there's the white, the
Emergency
green,
alerts.
the yellow, red, and black. It's the Event Alert System that they use.
Well, it's a good thing then the Twins weren't home yesterday.
Where we
But how
at.
can you have a ball game then? How could you have played a football
But
game?
Kenny's referring to the event itself, meaning that's their own guideline.
Yeah, and the Twin Cities in Motion event uses this system.
Well, then they must have numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
But my point earlier, nothing changed from Saturday to Sunday morning.
I said this to Joe earlier, guys, and I don't know what the answer is, but my guess is some of this had to be from they're worried about lawsuits. So if some runner drops dead, are they worried about litigation? Because that could be the only reason.
Aren't you signing a release?
You have to sign a
But
release.
yeah, I thought there was.
There's one more. They're worried about overwhelming the emergency rooms.
I have something very interesting about that
I didn't
that'll
even
come
think
up
of that.
shortly. Then there's a very simple way to do it. You have to divide the field, and you send all the pros off when it's 62 degrees and beautiful. And then if you want to run it, you announce that this marathon ends at noon. So wherever Janice Borman, is she going to call us today?
She has not returned my call, so I don't know what her status is. Hopefully she will.
Wherever the Janice Bormans are at noon, if they drop dead at 12:05, Twin Cities in Motion is not responsible because you ended the marathon at noon.
Either you were done by then.
You either were done by noon, or if you're still out there, too bad. Go home.
That's on you.
Or whatever. Get a ride, do something, but you're done. That's how you could have handled it. And that's how they'll have to handle it.
Evidently, precedent was set on October 7th in 2007 when both the Twin Cities and Chicago marathons ran at the same time. Midway through the Chicago one, they shut it down.
Jan Uzlik writes, lessons learned during the 2007 Twin Cities Marathon likely lead to the cancellation of the 2023 marathon. Joel, for more than 20 years, I was an amateur shortwave radio operator, ham radio, on a SAG wagon for the Twin Cities Marathon. It is hams, the ham radio guys, that provide the communications along the race route and are attached to the medical tent at the finish. There is a ham stationed every half mile of the race route with our net control located in a trailer next to the medical tent at the finish line. A SAG wagon picks up runners that drop out of the race for any number of reasons and takes them to a bus that is rolling with the race. It will take them to the finish line or go directly to the medical tent as directed by medical personnel stationed on the route. The temp continued to rise during the race to 84.7 degrees. The humidity did drop some to 65%, with the dew point still in the 70s at 71.6 degrees. These are extreme conditions for any heavy outdoor physical activity. It wasn't long, and I was getting calls for runner pickups with lethargy, severe cramping, and weakness. When I was called to mile 19 of the race, there were people laying all over the grass. It looked like a war zone. 2 ambulances pulled up, and many people climbed into my SAG as medical continued to work on the runners in the worst condition. One man was standing and had his arms wrapped around a tree. It took my driver and I both to pry him free and get him into the SAG.
What?
We took our riders to a bus, and as others got on the bus, this man was once again hanging onto the shrubs near the bus. Once again, he was pried from the shrubs and helped onto the bus. The ham on the bus was told to notify medical at the finish line to meet this bus for this man. I had to head back to mile 19. The medical tent at the finish line was overflowing, and cots were placed outside their tent with runners being treated out in the open all around the grounds. People were in terrible straits with severe muscle cramping. IVs were being run everywhere. Hospital ERs were becoming overrun with runners needing treatment for heat exhaustion, dehydration, and heat stroke. There were so many here's the key point that Kenny referenced. There were so many 911 calls for the race that officials were becoming concerned that all these medical responders were being stretched so thin that there would be no ability for response to any medical emergencies that may occur beyond the marathon. The officials came very close to stopping the race that year. One doctor kept taking wet bulb temps. I think that means considering what the humidity and dew point was. One doctor kept taking wet bulb temps at intervals as they struggled deciding with stopping the race. It was a Twin Cities marathon race I will never forget. Respectfully, Jan Uzlake, and he gives me his ham radio number. Okay. Well, then the calm way to look at this is this race yesterday had achieved its black flag threshold. So rather than swamp 911 calls in both Minneapolis and St. Paul, they canned it.
They still screwed up. Don't back off on this, Such. So maybe the weather angle isn't going to work for you. 20,000 people pre-registered for this.
Right.
7,000 registered on Saturday.
Yep.
That's 27,000. They screwed those people, especially the 7,000 that registered on Saturday. They should have made the announcement ahead of time.
Well,
as early as Thursday, Friday. Hey, we're watching the forecast for Sunday. We'll make a decision on Saturday.
Where the mystery comes in is, what are we going to be allowed to do? What decision making is going to be left for the individual? Apparently, in a marathon where you pay a fee and enter, I guess you have to acquiesce to the people who run it. You just can't arbitrarily say, no, I disagree with your announcement, I'm running it. Well, and many people did, by the way. Many people did, but it wasn't official. It won't count for them applying to another marathon or whatever. But many people did. But what personal response, like Downing notes, let me get this straight. Children can decide to permanently mutilate their own bodies, and not even their own parents can stop them. But adults are not allowed to decide for themselves whether it is too hot to go for a run.
That's a good point.
Huh.
But again, how could the 20,000 people have overruled the governing body? And the answer is no, they could not.
I saw.
But the reaction that I got from talking to people all day long yesterday was disbelief.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was just utter disbelief. I'd never awakened to such a beautiful morning as yesterday. And again, the elite runners would have been done by the time it hit 75 degrees. There's not a doubt in my. I mean, they all run it in 2 hours.
I was in
What was the temperature yesterday at 10 o'clock? It probably wasn't even 75.
I think it was 68 because I remember seeing this on the news, and the temperature on the corner of the newscast I was watching was 68 degrees.
Well, then there's another aspect of the mystery that comes into play. Everyone wants a medal. I told you guys last week that one of the most fun I ever had writing a column was for about 2 weeks prior to the marathon 10 or 15 years ago. I said, if you're just running it to get your name in the paper, save yourself the trouble and just send me the time you want recorded, and I'll put that at the bottom of every column. And 10, 15 people a day did that for 2 weeks. It was wonderful. So have we reached the point where I want to run a marathon because I can. I get to do it too. Never mind that I weigh 400 pounds and I can't walk 6 blocks. I'm running a marathon. All you're doing is destroying it for the guys who could and the women who can run a marathon.
Right.
Clogging
Right.
up.
Laws are designed to protect the cowards, the simple, and the weak.
So this Twin Cities in Motion, they got to revise their gig here. What are you going to do next year? You've established your black flag precedent, and you apparently did it to accommodate stiffs.
Yeah.
The weakest in the
So
herd.
what are you going to do?
have it in late October.
Well, no. Why do you have to allow it? According to Reavers, and you don't know this for a fact, but you're pretty confident, you don't need to qualify for this marathon.
To the best of my knowledge, you do not. I know she had to qualify for Boston, but she did not have to qualify for the Twin Cities Marathon.
Well,
And I'd ask her, but she's not really talking to me.
well,
right
then
now.
isn't it simple? You just have to qualify to get in this marathon. If you want this to be an elite marathon, they've called it the most gorgeous urban marathon in the country.
Sure.
And so if you want in, don't you have to demonstrate some capacity to run it?
I don't want to answer for them, but I think they would say no because then they won't get, as Kenny said, 27,000 people.
Well, then you're going to go through this every other year.
I guess.
It could just as easily yesterday have been snowing.
Well, it's like The Price is Right with that the window, the thing that you got to find out, is it going to be 76 degrees, 82? Where do we cancel?
Well, they've done it now. They've done it, and apparently it's if the temperature is at 90 degrees at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Isn't this where we're at, though, in America? How many red flag warnings did we receive over the summer telling people to stay indoors due to air quality or the heat or the humidity?
Now,
Meanwhile,
you know what?
the road construction guys are still out there. The guys are still up on roofs throwing down shingles.
If they
the
had
farmers
this-
are still in
Yeah.
the field baling hay.
If they had this marathon at the height of some of those smokiest days, I don't think I would have bitched if they canceled. I don't think I would have seen anything nefarious in that. I wouldn't have run in that. That was dreadful.
You would have understood.
Oh, absolutely. What if it was a hard rain? I don't know how marathoners think about that. Does it become too slippery? An ice storm? I can see canceling it if you had an ice storm. But I don't see canceling it for a nice day.
No, I was a bit shocked.
This is where we're at in the country, Joe. We're being led by wimps and cowards. There's no strong men anymore. There's no strong women anymore. And if you are, you're considered toxic.
And despite saying that everyone I talked to was in disbelief, every quote I read and every quote I heard on local news and every quote I read in the newspaper, people were entirely understanding. Oh, well.
Oh, that's not what I'm seeing. And that's not what I saw in the morning news this morning.
Read the Star Tribune's play story about it.
I'm,
Everyone they quoted said, well,
That's by design.
I can understand this.
Like,
You know,
it's okay.
It's all right.
There were quite a few people that were PO'd on the morning news
I saw
this
people
morning.
that were upset as well.
And one guy from Chicago who very calmly in a dry voice expressed his
saw that guy.
his anger, and I thought, this guy, he's a lawyer, and something's going to he this isn't the end of this for this fellow.
And they asked him if we're talking about the same guy. Someone said to him, "Are you going to run it anyway?" And he said, "I don't really have the motivation." In other
not
words,
there for
what's
me.
the motivation? It wouldn't have counted for anything.
Right.
He could not have used his time to get into other marathons.
Well, did they still block off traffic for people to?
Tom Hauser told me
No.
he ran 10 miles yesterday.
Oh, sick humble brag, Tom.
Right. I didn't realize he's remember when I was talking about those top 6?
Oh, he's too damn healthy. I don't.
He has I think Tokyo left.
Joe, I went duck hunting yesterday morning, and I was drenched in sweat before it was even light out, and I was so hot that I couldn't even shoot straight. I
don't
missed
care.
my
don't care.
first shot.
I don't care.
Should call duck hunting off. It's too damn hot.
Well, we've lost this answer to life. Who gives a bleep? In other words, if some 300-pounder keeled over with heat exhaustion, who gives a bleep? You decided to run. But everyone,
It's very insensitive, Joe.
everyone has to get a medal. So I guess anyone who wants to thinks they can run a marathon.
Right.
Where what we now know with the elite runners, it's a tremendous campaign to even run one at their level. They're professionals. You know, what was the temperature when Philippine Ed ran in marathon in 1100 BC or whatever the hell his name was? Philippides.
I don't think they were worried
He
about
died at the end of it.
that. Yeah, they weren't worried about that.